The FD is either gonna live in this video or the next one. I don't quite know yet up until more of our parts show up, but what did show up was our new radiator fans. Now those are not a direct plug and play setup for the radiator that we have. Those fit a stock FD radiator and a Mishimoto LS swap radiator, which we don't have either of those. We have a Greddy V-mount, so we need to make some custom brackets to be able to mount that radiator up to our Greddy V-mount radiator. This is going to allow us to be able to run our fans off the Haltech and not have to stress this whole weird discombobulated system that we currently have from the factory. On top of that, we need to do vacuum lines. We got all of our hard line in from the guys over at JDC, so we have a whole bunch of titanium hard line that we're gonna be bending up, as well as a whole box of titanium goodies in there. We got in a couple of the small fittings we need, so like I said, in this video or in the next one, the FD will be started, it will run, it will smoke us all out, and it will be great. So to start things off, we need to get out our Greddy V-mount radiator that's in here, build up some brackets to mount up our Mishimoto one, get it back in, wired it up with that fuse box that I made, and get the fans tested. One side. There we go. Woo! Dope. Where are we kind of at? So we're kind of. Up, that. All of our brackets are made up here. We have our new fans on, bolted to the radiator. It's pretty freaking strong. I just made little tabs to be able to hold all this together. This radiator shroud obviously is not meant for this radiator. This is meant for an LS swap or a factory FD radiator. And well, we obviously made it work with our Greddy one. So let's get this thing in. This is looking fabulous. Fabulous! So let me go ahead and start wiring this up, and then after we get it wired up, we'll do some tests on it just to make sure that the fans listen to what the ECU is telling it to do, because now with this and my new relay box, I should have full control over those fans to tell them exactly when to turn on, when to turn off, and when to just listen to us. So I've already cut out the old fan wiring off the main harness because that is obviously not going to be used anymore. It's rather bulky and it was kind of in the way, so now we have the freedom to be able to wire these however we want. So I'm gonna find a home for the fuse box. I need to order a bracket for it, but that shouldn't be too bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some connectors on these guys. We will run these somewhere up here where they're out of the way, hook up the fuse box, and then get to testing. I made this harness pretty easy to wire up for the fans. We just have 3 leads. One of them's gonna go to the fans, one of them's gonna go to the battery, and then one of them's just gonna plug into the factory harness where the DPO is from our patch harness. So should be pretty easy to wire up on this one. I actually found the problem with the old setup, and with this one, we redid all the wiring except for one aspect which we kept, and that was the DPO that came from the ECU in the patch harness into the factory wiring harness here, and we had that plug into our fuse box, right? The fans stayed on again after I turned the car off, and they wouldn't listen to me. So I was like, all right, we redid everything else. We know all that works. I was like, the only thing we didn't change was the DPO location. I cut it from the ECU. I ran this temporary wire in there, and the fans worked as they should. So what the problem actually was, it wasn't the factory wiring, it wasn't any of that stuff. The problem was the patch harness from Rywire. I don't know if they used that one intentionally. I don't know if that patch harness was done wrong. I don't know if that harness is meant for a later year RX7. But the problem was that the stock wiring from the patch harness, where they connected, also connected the DPO to the chassis, so it shared a chassis ground. So as the relay switched on, the circuit would stay open even after the key was removed because it still has a completed circuit. It's pulling the ground from the chassis on that DPO. Really easy solution here. All I need to do is hook up this one wire that I just made right here, run it from the ECU through the fender well up to our fuse box right here, and it'll work as intended. So I'm gonna run this last wire. We'll run a couple tests on the fans, make sure everything works. But in the end, the problem ended up being the patch harness from Rywire for the Haltech for the 13B. So even if you're buying a plug and play harness, keep in mind that if you run into wiring problems like that, sometimes it's not the factory wiring, sometimes it's not you, sometimes it is what you bought. And as much as it sucks to say, I probably wouldn't buy another one of these harnesses in the future, if we're just being completely honest, because I can buy all the materials to make this for the same price I bought this thing for. It just makes more sense at that point to just build my own that I know it'll be problem free. So kind of sucks, but let me run this last wire and we can run some tests and then put this whole fan business behind. So I just went through a basic test and the radiator fans work as they should. I can turn them on when they need to come on. I can turn them off. I can disable the fans when the engine's off. I can leave the fans on when the engine's off. When the engine's not running, but the ignition's on. I can set the temperature. They all work as they should. Now, while the problem was in the Rywire harness, I am glad that we did do what we just did because it cleaned up so much wiring. All of the giant bundle of wiring that used to be right here, all gone. And it was a good chunk of wiring too. Like all of this is just not needed. So our new fan relay harness replaced all of that. There's 4 relays here, a whole bunch of different wires and whatnot, all that just gone. The fans that are in that fan shroud, I am going to replace with 2 SPAL fans that have a higher CFM, but for the time being on what we're doing, they should be totally okay. So our relay box, I have tucked right down here underneath the intake. It hides it nicely. And everything else, it just cleaned up the wiring a ton in this engine bay, and I'm very happy with that. So just to show you guys, I'm going to hop in the car, I'm gonna turn the fans off, or I'm gonna turn the fans on, then I'll turn them off manually just so that way you guys can see they do work. Just like that. Awesome. That's great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, now that our radiator fans work, I'm going to go ahead and put the Haltech up in its home permanently. So that way we're not going to be kicking it down to the kick panel and whatnot. I think at this point we can actually put on our crash beam permanently. I don't know if I want to run the horns. I don't think the horns will work without the clock spring. If we're being honest, I'm not putting a clock spring back in this thing because we can't. So, maybe we don't. We'll see. I don't know. I'll do a quick Google. Haltech is all mounted up in its home down there. I do have the carpet pulled up right now because I have one body plug that I had to seam seal in right down there. Now, I lost the one that actually went there and I don't know what exactly happened to it. So I just measured the diameter of the plug that goes there. I bought these aluminum discs and then we're just seam sealing this into the body and that will seal up the floor. And then we can touch it up with a little bit of the rubberized undercoating. Once that's actually cured, we can put the carpet back down, clean up the passenger seat, and then that can go in permanently. Now, I do want to give a huge shout out to the guys over at JD Customs. They sent us a ton of titanium here that we're going to be using on the car. So a lot of the bolts that are on the car are going to get swapped out for these titanium ones. They sent us a good amount of goodies here. So we have a blow-off valve, 4AN titanium adapter, this for the wastegates, oil cap, lug nuts, a variety of nuts and bolts. We got their titanium cleaner, And then we have some titanium hardline here, and this is what we're gonna make the vacuum lines out of, from at minimum the wastegates going to the boost controller, because with how hot rotaries get, any silicone line that we put, especially down there, over time will degrade. So if we use titanium hardline or any hardline in general, it's not gonna degrade over time, and it'll hold up to whatever heat this thing puts out at it. Just kidding. The first thing we can actually do is start swapping out all of the hardware on our blow-off valve for our titanium hardware. Now the titanium hardware is gonna be kind of cool because as heat goes in the engine bay, I got all of this as raw titanium, and as heat goes through the engine bay, the titanium will naturally change color from the amount of heat that's going to be put out. So some things will color at different rates than others. I think it'll be a cool little natural change to happen. Plus JD Customs has now given me an unhealthy addiction to titanium, so thank you for that, JD Customs. Valve. That looks good. That actually looks really good. There is a contrast difference between the aluminum and the titanium on this stuff, so I think that looks really good. Dope. Happy with that. So after wrapping up some of the easy silicone vacuum lines in the engine bay, I wanted to try bending up some of the titanium for our boost controller to our wastegates on the turbo and all that stuff. So I figured, why not just try it now? I started doing all of the vacuum lines, and I got to doing a lot of the hard lines. So we're using titanium from JDC, and I was making these lines. I got the one from the turbo done here, so it comes down from the turbo, wraps along the frame, then comes up tees in here. These go to the bottom of the wastegates. I still have to do the other one. It comes up to the boost controller here. And then I went to go make the next line and realized that Amazon had sent me all the wrong fittings. I had ordered 1/4 inch and they sent me all 3/16, so I can't do anything with these, and I couldn't even next day some. So the hard lines and the vacuum lines for the wastegates are gonna have to wait until Saturday, which sucks, but we definitely have enough line left over. We still have about 3 rods here of titanium 1/4 inch with a little bit of excess like here and whatnot. So we have enough line. It's just they sent me the wrong fittings, which sucks. So you know, it's whatever, it's not a big deal. We can actually put the intake manifold on permanently once I get the vacuum lines kind of taken care of right here. So now that we had all the vacuum lines ran in the engine bay, we actually needed to hook them up to where they're going, i.e. a lot of them are just going to the intake manifold. We've got one map sensor that's built into the ECU that needed to come out of the firewall from the inside of the car, go into the bottom of the manifold. We had our fuel damper, our fuel pressure regulator, our blow-off valve that all had to go to the manifold as well. Intake manifold is permanently on. This intercooler pipe's permanently on. I need to order clamps for this. I only had one that would fit this side, so I need to order 3 more. Aside from that, vacuum system is pretty much done. The only thing we have left to do is hook up the rest of the boost controller, but I have to wait for Amazon to send me the new fittings because, like I said, they sent me 3/16 when I needed 1/4 inch. So it says Saturday. I was really hoping we get a first start on this tomorrow. Looks like it'll be pushed out today, but in the meantime, we can still get some other stuff knocked out. So I just went and grabbed some coolant. I want to get this thing filled up. It's going to tell us if we have any coolant leaks, and it'll just kind of prep us for our first start. So let's get this thing filled up with coolant. I'm just trying to do everything I can now to just kind of make our first start go smooth. I'm feeling a little naughty. Even though the vacuum, it's just the wastegates. The wastegates are the only thing that's not fully hooked up right now. I'm gonna try to start it. Fuck, I gotta bleed the clutch. Technically, no, I don't. I don't even have to push in the clutch to start it. Let me try to build oil pressure. I'm gonna try to start this thing. It'll just be for a minute, right? Just 1 minute. I'm gonna hook up the can gauge. I'm gonna get my laptop plugged in just in case. Once I see we built oil pressure, I'm just gonna crank it, see if it starts. If it starts, I'm gonna shut it off probably after like 10 seconds, like realistically. So I'm just impatient, I wanna fucking hear it. gonna smoke a lot.
Okay.
Well, hey, where's my phone? I want to record this.
Wait, you aren't recording it?
You want to record it for me?
Yeah.
Sure. She's a little smoky. It fucking lives again. It's running a little bit rough because she got some vacuum leaks right now. But that's all, and the idle set screws aren't set for the TPS and all that stuff. But dude, I'm just hyped that it works. We got the big smoke show out of the way because it gets real smoky the first time you start up a rotary. There's all that like assembly lube and everything inside of the engine that's got to burn off. So all that just takes a minute to burn off. We don't even have the throttle body sealed or anything like that. So there's definitely some leaks in the vacuum system just because we can't even finish it yet until the fittings get dropped off on Saturday. So I'm hyped for that. There's a little bit of stuff I want to do left in this video. I want to get the passenger seat in. I want to get the steering wheel bolted on. I want to get some kick panels on. I want to try to clean up some more of those interior panels that I got back there. Maybe get one of the horns on. Just knock out a lot of the little stuff that I have sitting around. We still have to, this car has no axles in it. There's no fluid in the rear diff yet or anything like that. So I don't really want to, I can't even drive it until we put axles in it, which we'll probably do in the next video, and then take it out for a first drive. It's on like a base map though. It's pretty rough. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of tuning to clean up the map a little bit, which is totally fine. That's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and get our passenger seat bolted in, our steering wheel actually bolted on, and you know, just some more of the small stuff taken care of. I am fucking stoked.
Oh, I wish we had axles in it, but no, that's all right.
Yup. Eyes are on way.
Let's say it lines up like perfect right here.
The next day, nothing leaked out of the RX7, which is a good sign. Most of the interior's back in there. I did get the fix for our PCV system, and it's literally just this little bolt-on guy. So this will bolt onto the engine for the oil fill, and then that 10AN fitting right there is for the catch can. Now I know what some of you guys are wondering, how are you gonna fill up the engine with oil? You just take off the breather, and then I've got a line that I can just put on here to use as a funnel to bring it up, to pour oil in, and that's how we will fill up our engine. So I wanna start with that, wrap up the PCV system there, and then I also just got in our carbon fiber side skirts this morning for the car, which should add a nice little aesthetic to the exterior and just help flow. Our catch can problems are all solved. If you look right down there, you'll see that nice little billet piece that uses a 3/4 inch NPT adapter to -10, and then that -10 wraps up to our catch can here. And now, like I said, even if I wanted to fill the oil, I wanted to be lazy, all I really have to do is take this fitting off, raise it up in the air, and then pour the oil down this line into the engine, and then that's one way to change the oil. So I mean, it's one extra little step to do an oil change on the car, but you know, it's really not the end of the world. It's not that bad. Plus it's nice. Look at that nice little billet piece. I also have our elbow here permanently bolted on, so there's no more fitment issues. Obviously we got all the room in the world right there now, so great. Now let's jump to our side skirt. I'm actually really surprised at how much the look of the car actually changes by adding the side skirts. Like, they make more of a difference than I was anticipating, and it looks so good with them carbon. Like, it just changes the entire look of the car for the better. These cars absolutely need some type of side skirt extension on there. Surprisingly enough, the fitment on these is pretty well. Like I said, I snagged these off eBay. They were like 300 bucks. Granted, they're fiberglass with a couple, like 1 or 2 twills of carbon fiber over it. It's an aesthetic piece. It doesn't need to be full carbon fiber. So now that we've got the, maybe I should have just left the hatch carbon. Nah, I'm joking. Now that we've got that stuff kind of knocked out, I went and picked up some windshield wiper blades when I was at the auto parts store the other day. I want to get the windshield wipers on here so that way we have a couple less parts floating around the shop. Plus it'll kind of complete the look up here. I need to find this seal that runs along where the hood goes. Wiper. Set a couple adjustments in the map for this, so I'm gonna start it one more time to see. So at this point, the FD is actually almost done. Like I said, we just have some small stuff to wrap up on this thing. Rear brake rotors, calipers, which I have in there, hook up the e-brakes, bleed the brakes, bleed the clutch. Vacuum lines, I think I already said that though. Under trays, which I all have inside, which we'll Cerakote those. Couple hose clamps in the engine bay, and then aside from that, this thing is ready to go for tuning. So I am very curious to see how the car does, see how much power it actually makes. I'm big hyped to see it start up first try yesterday. I made a couple adjustments in the map for it. I just richened it up a little bit since it is a fresh motor. I do want to get a little bit more fuel in there, but not too much where we're washing it all out. Just enough to actually help lubricate everything in the rotor housings for the side seals, the apex seals, and all of that to kind of take place. Where is the light? So I'm gonna get the FD pushed back in the shop. I think that's gonna wrap it up in this video. We got an absolute ton done. In the next video, we should be able to wrap up a lot more of the small stuff. When do you estimate to have the wing done? From the man himself, he said the wing should be done roughly next week. Let me get this thing pushed back in. We do need to also find a parasitic battery draw because it is killing the battery overnight. I have a feeling I know what it is. There's a little light right by the key, and that is staying on with all the doors shut, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to turn off. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll play with that. Besides that, oh, we have to wire up the taillights also. So there's just a handful of little stuff left on the car, but I'm so hyped that it's actually working again. So with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit that like button. Turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, sight, and whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not subscribed to the channel and you want to be, I'll put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet. But with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies. Woo!